Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Image Bearers. I'm Lacey Connor, your host, and today we have a fantastic guest. It is my 8th grade Bible teacher. He is wonderful. Everyone, welcome Mr. Stroup. Now, I'm going to keep calling you Mr. Stroup.
Okay.
Your name is, do you go by Dan or Daniel?
Dan.
Okay, that's what I thought. Your emails say Daniel. So I was like, I don't know. When people have those kind of names, you can go either way. But this is Dan Stroup, but I will be referring to you as Mr. Stroup just because it's just so easy. And I don't know. It's like a habit. I don't know what it is. Most people I've had teachers, I will refer to them like once I become an adult. I guess I still kind of question if I'm an adult. I am an adult because now I have 3 kids and building a house, but I still don't fully feel like my parents' age. But yes, Mr. Stroup, my 8th grade Bible teacher, how are you?
Doing great. Looking forward to the summer, and it's been beautiful spring so far, and just have a lot to look forward to.
Right, it has. Thank the Lord for the sunniness. I mean, today it's pretty rainy, sadly, but it has been sunny, especially Sunday. It was beautiful, right? Everyone was living their best life. Yes. How so I was been asking some of your older students and stuff. I guess I'm one of your students. My husband Zach is, and some of his family members and stuff. And they were just reminiscing and talking about your wonderful letters. So we'll talk about your little letters you write. For those who do not know, Mr. Stroup also, he has taught for how many? 40 years?
41 years.
41 years. Yes. That's crazy. You still look so young.
Right.
It cracks me up. But yeah, so 40 years. And in those, did you start writing birthday? So you write birthday letters to people every year. Did you start 41 years ago, or did the sad people the first year not get birthday letters?
My first 4 years I taught in the 6th grade, and then I moved to the middle school. And after my first year in the middle school, I thought, this is where life is. This is where I want to be. And I was looking for some way to have connection with them outside the classroom. And I thought this would be a nice thing I can do at home, just quietly write them a letter on their birthday. Everybody has a birthday, let them know I'm thinking about them. And so it started my 5th year of teaching.
Okay, 5th year. Oh, poor people who...
There are a few that got grandfathered in just because of contact with them or other situations like that. So there are a few that were added in from the first few years. I am just to keep things honest here, I am in the process of ending this. It's going to take a few years to do it, but there are some people who have received a final letter, and nice knowing you, and glad we could keep in touch over the years. So I feel like I have to mention that.
Yeah, well, you have a lot of people. Did you realize when you started this birthday letters that it was going to be this commitment?
Oh, no,
right?
Not at all. Because I thought I would write them during the day. I thought my biggest commitment was for the summer birthdays. I would write them over the summer. But after the first year, there are kids who went on to high school, and I thought, well, I still have a relationship with them. I still want them to know I care about them. It wasn't just a middle school thing. And so I wrote to them. Then they went on to college, and then they get married. And I just kept writing as long as I had an address for them.
It cracks. I mean, it's true, but I'm trying to think, my cousin, Zach's cousin and my cousins are in their late 30s, 40s, and they still get letters from you.
Or
were they slowly about to not?
Well, there are some people who have turned 50 now. And so, it's been going on for a while.
That is awesome, but that's a commitment, and it's crazy that you've stayed with it and stuff. Because I think no one would have faulted you for being like, "We're good, you graduated."
Right. It's been fun just to keep involved in people's lives.
It seems. I mean, you always seem very intentional and stuff. It just reminds me of just being in class and all how you taught and stuff, and just your presence is very calming. I mean, I'm guessing people can probably see and hear it. Your voice is just all
good.
Very calming. Now, you were on the news for these letters and stuff, so you've made
yes, Scott Swan from Channel 13 did a piece back in 2009, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
And then they used his piece the day after Thanksgiving, so it was on Good Morning America. And then a few years later, CBS on the road with can't remember his
Yeah.
name now, but
Th-
he came and did a piece as well.
That's
Yeah.
what was that like being like, oh, I just started this just wanting to keep in contact with my, students. And now I'm, on main TV, especially Good Morning America and on the road. Those are like legit news sources.
I remember thinking when this started, this will be something I can do that nobody really knows about. I can
Right.
just do it behind, on weekends and in the evenings. Oh, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, I really did think that nobody will know that I did this, which was fine with me. I didn't want to get a lot of attention. So it's
Right.
kind of funny how things turned out.
Right. Because it just cracks me up because you are not that kind of man that wants the attention.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
then, I mean, I guess it's always like if you're doing something that is right, that's loving, and that people feel like seen and heard for, it'll go far.
Well,
You don't have to do, I mean, you kind of did much because you kept in contact. It's like, it amazes me like how much you do, like, because every night, like, what goes in, you sit down every night, or is it morning time?
now that I'm retired, I do it during the day. I'll spend an hour or two during the day writing letters.
That is,
Yeah.
that is crazy. So, but you got to take breaks when you go on like vacation, or do you bring stuff with you on vacation?
For years, I would bring stuff on vacation. Now I try to work ahead and get a couple weeks done in advance so that then I don't have to mess around with it at vacation time.
All right.
Yeah.
So you said you got the idea from just wanting to stay in connection with your students. Why do you feel like you want to like, I don't know, why do you have this heart to do that? Because there's so many teachers that may be connected to their students when they're teaching them, but after they're just like, farewell, like, bye bye, have a good year, you've been a great student, you're a great person, but you wanted to take it like a step further and then you stayed with it. Like, what brings up the love for your students?
I think I mentioned before that after my first year in the middle school, I thought I just really love this age group.
Hmm.
I love the kids. I love the interaction. And I just wanted them to know that I tried to let them know during the school year that I love you. I'm glad you're in the classroom. And it's been so good to get to know you. And I didn't want them to think that was just a 1 year thing.
Okay.
That my love, my compassion for them carried beyond the time that they were in the classroom.
And I feel like that's very important, especially in the middle school era
Mhm.
time, because you're trying to figure out who you are, you're trying to figure out who your friends are. Like I feel like, I guess I could speak for myself and some other middle schoolers I've talked to in life, that like something like that could be a definite anchor to be like, I'm still loved. I still from someone else besides their like family members and
Right.
stuff. So
And
it's,
I wanted to portray
mhm.
that. I can remember going through middle school. It was probably the worst years of my life. I never want to live through it, but I sure enjoyed being involved as a teacher in their lives.
Right, yeah, no, you definitely were, and that's, I know middle school is so rough. I feel like no matter where you go, what school, any kind
Right.
of thing, it's a struggle.
Mhm.
I mean, and always physically, emotionally, spiritually, just all of it.
Right.
So the
Right.
Lord definitely put you in the role. He gave you a
I'm
heart for
yeah,
a specific
I'm
need.
so thankful for it because I felt I was right in the center of God's will.
All right, that's that's so fun. All right, Mr. Stroup also. Oh, I guess I did not mention. This is the second time I've recorded this. The first one, I feel like I didn't get your like essence of it. Plus, I was still new to the thing, so I was afraid to like, you're Mr. Stroup. I was afraid to like ask questions and just be like, okay, cool. So I was like, but you need to come on just for like, even if we just talked about the birthday letters and stuff, which is something so important. I mean, it's so important that it's been on national news, but also just like Mr. Like, I feel also, because people, I mean, I've asked tons of your students and stuff, and they've had tons of questions. And I think it's people view you as such a peaceful, loving man. But with that, we now know, now that we've grown up and stuff, we know that life is hard and that there's struggles every day. And I think people also, just from questions I have acquired, just are, like, you seem so peaceful. You are so loving, so kind, so fun. Your voice is so relaxing and so nice. And it's just, and you give this very like grandpa energy. But now we know, since life is hard, what hardships have you had in life that brought you, got you closer to the Lord, but also sometimes made you maybe question the Lord and why, his goodness. So, yeah. Do you have what's your thoughts on that question?
Well, early on, at coming to Heritage, the pay for middle school teachers is not real high. And so there's constant struggles, just making sure ends would meet financially. And I was always able to see God was faithful.
Mhm.
And I can remember coming into teaching knowing that there wouldn't be a lot of money there, but I told the Lord, if you want me here, I know you can meet our needs, and certainly over 40 years, he did that over and over again,
Right.
and we did not lack a thing. In 2009, my wife was diagnosed with a cancer,
Uh-huh.
and so that became ongoing for the next 10 years, and really the next 10 years were fairly normal with that, but then in 2019, the end of 2018, the cancer moved up to her brain,
Mhm.
and she passed away in March of 2019.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever questioned God's goodness or his faithfulness and all that. I was able to make it through that, seeing his hand and everything. But um, in the couple years after that, there's a lot of loneliness when you've
Mhm.
been with someone for 40 years. And there were times I remember thinking, God, what about me? I'm out here. What am I doing? Because in that process, the first year after my wife died, I was still teaching. And so I was around the students, and so made it through that all right. But then the next year, I had retired, COVID hit, and there was a lot of alone time, which I don't need a lot of alone time. I can handle maybe about 15 minutes a day, but then I like to be around people. I don't like to use the ATM. I'd rather go in and see someone,
Yeah,
in the
right.
bank. And so there were some real struggles during that time of just being alone and wondering, what do you have for me,
Right.
Lord?
I bet that was hard with, teaching. I knew we went to your wife's funeral. And so but I never thought like you went back to work. I guess I just always thought like once I graduated, you were just living your life and just, I know you kept working and stuff,
Yeah.
but that must have been hard because you are lonely and then you're around all these children and you just have to like step up, like, I guess kind of step up, kind of be like, okay, I did lose my wife. I do feel lonely, but I need to show up for these children.
Well, first of all, let me correct you. I didn't
Oh.
go back to work. I went back to school
I'm
because school was never work. Work is
oh.
something you have to do. School was something I wanted to do.
Oh.
And no, it was a blessing to be around the students and to just have a routine. And so the first year was uh, pretty good, but it was after I retired and then didn't have that classroom
All right.
contact that was really difficult.
Right? It's just so funny because I don't know, picture you as someone who wants to just, like, I guess it's just because you're just, like, kind of soft personality, like, you just I just wanna give you a big hug every time I see you. But, I mean, like, you never realize, though, like, you were married to your wife for 40 years. That's a long time. Zach and I have only
So
married for almost 10 years. 40 years,
it's a
that's
long time.
it is.
Yes.
It is. And I bet probably, you probably you have because you have children. You probably had children, but still, it's just there's that loneliness, like, when you go home and stuff.
Right.
So how did you overcome, like, I mean, you said you struggled with it, but how did you stay, like, in it, but not let it defeat you?
I once attended a funeral years ago where the pastor talked about how if you're standing on an ocean, the waves are coming in, and about every seventh wave is a big one.
Mhm.
And uh, grief comes in kind of like that, where there's just grief comes in, but about every seventh time, it's just almost overwhelming. But I was able to see God always had a blessing on the other side of it from the very beginning.
Mhm.
When like it was on a Saturday right at noon when my wife died, and within 3 hours, I had a friend come by that from school. One of my best friends just showed up at the front door, and we just were sitting down talking. And then pretty soon, a friend from that I've had since like fifth grade in in elementary school, he came by. Um, my daughter came in from Northwest Indiana, and just it was the best thing just to
Mhm.
have people around, and it was the best way to experience that. And then the next day, other family member comes in, and then there's things to do all that week. And week later, we had the funeral, and I remember you being there, and
Uh-huh.
it was so great just to see so many former students and current
Right.
students and friends. There's just a strength and people coming to your side at a time like that, and just if I can say it was a great like time of reunion with so many friends. After the funeral, after the reception, went home, and I remember being exhausted, just sitting down and thinking, "This is my new life. I'm kind of all by myself, even though family's all
Yeah.
around. I'm by myself." And my son was there, grandchildren were there, everybody, the kids went to bed, and then I was just my adult children around, and we were just talking about the day. And I remember what a blessing that was just for us to recount, the conversations we had that day, some of the memories, some of the things about the funeral. And by the time I went to bed that night, it's like, this is okay. I just really am thankful for that blessing of being around family. The next day, something interesting happened. Again, that grief comes in, and you realize this is a new life. I'm by myself. Even though family's around, there's that grief that comes in. And sometime in the afternoon, uh, someone had given us some bedding plants, and
Mhm.
I thought, I don't want to just sit around here all day. I'm kind of a little discouraged. Just that grief is coming in. And I thought, well, I'll just get a couple of the older grandchildren. We'll go out and plant these. And I got them. We got all the stuff together. We're going out to plant them, and all eight of the grandchildren I had at the time, all of a sudden they're all there,
Uh-huh.
and we're on our hands and knees digging in the dirt. The younger ones are climbing on my back, and they're just so intent on this. Here's a worm, and you got to plant, you got to dig this hole, and you got to put. And I'm just kind of telling them how to do this, and they were just all so involved. And I thought it was just going to be the two older ones, but there's just something about that moment that, again, the blessing that comes in after grief. And I just sat back and thought, God gave me this moment, and it's a great time. Photographs. The kids are on their hands and knees, are climbing under me, on top of me, and we're just putting these plants in the ground. And I thought, yeah, God has a blessing on the other side of every
Mhm.
grief, and that was how He used that moment. Then after that, then went back to school. The students, hugs, and just such a warm reception from them. Um, Cards in the mail, getting
Mhm.
3, 4 cards a day, just comments that people make, memories that they had, and God just helped me through that time and just remind me, with every grief, there's always a blessing that's going to come.
Alright, that's very true, but it's good
Yeah.
that you're able to see God's blessing in that, and, like, a lot of people would have, trying to plant those plants, with all those children would have been like, "Okay, guys, 2 at a time," but you were like you saw the blessing in that, and you
Yes.
saw that God was good even in this time
Yes.
where, you didn't have your wife anymore. He provided with, like you said, community, your family, and he gave you this blessing that you're able to see, that your heart was open to see, and you weren't just sitting there, like, in your thoughts, I guess.
Right.
He
Right.
gave you the, the energy, I don't know what you call it, the energy or something to get up and to do something.
Yes. Yes,
Uh-huh.
he did. And that energy came from the consistent blessings that he would bring into my life.
That's it's so cute. I love that. That is. But I love that you had the openness and that that time of, loneliness, but you saw the blessing in the loneliness and stuff. But then the loneliness led to another great blessing who's sitting in this room
Yeah.
with us right
Right.
now.
Right.
Tell us the adventure of, I guess, semi-dating after being a widower,
Yeah.
and then how it all happened, like,
All right.
I went into it. Because I love that you told me a story, and I was like, "Oh my god, I love this." Because normally we hear like from people like my age or younger about dating and stuff. But
Right.
it's very interesting to hear from like an older man because it's still like y'all are still, human. You're still like you need community, you need partners and stuff. And I think sometimes people think like you get a certain age and you're like, you're cool. You just sit at home, just watch your TV, you're fine and stuff. But that you are open to it. And how did that start? Like you realize that you were lonely, but I feel like still some people are afraid to actually go out and like put themselves forward and to just go out. They're fine being like, I have a family, I have grandkids, I'll just hang out with them all the time, which they are good. And it's a beautiful thing to have that. But it's also you need like a partner. You need someone else to share life with.
Right. I understood the truth of the saying that you can be around a lot of people and still be lonely. And so there's something about having a partner, a spouse that is close. But just to back up a little bit,
Yeah,
in
sorry.
that first year, again, God brought blessings into my life. I remember it was probably 2.5 months before there came a day when I had to go to church by myself. And I'd been to church by myself, but somehow going as a widow, you feel like everybody's looking at
All
you and,
right.
oh, your wife's not here with you today and all that. And the first time back to church, I was thinking of this as I got to church and I'm just by myself. I don't have anybody to sit with. And I sit down and I had hardly sat down when all of a sudden, and I was actually there early for some reason, but one of my former students with her family, actually the husband and wife, both students of mine and their family, just came walking into the aisle where I was. They sat down next to me, started talking, telling me about the family, introducing me to their kids again and things like that. And I thought, wow, God is taking care of everything. At a time when I'm most lonely, he brings in some blessing. And it was just nice to see that. I had another student that came by about 4 or 5 months later. He had done counseling in college, and he said, I know that there's a lot of people that come around you when you first suffer grief, but it's always 5, 6 months later that people just kind of forget about it. They leave. And he said, I wanted to be the one who would come in. And it was such a
Oh,
blessing for
that
him to do that.
is.
And we would often, the church he went to was close to where I lived, and he would come by about every Sunday afternoon, and we'd sit on the porch, and it just was, God meeting the need,
Right,
bringing a
definitely.
blessing every time. Um, the 1 year anniversary of my wife's death, it was right at noon, right when she had died, 1 year later. And as I saw it turn to noon, I just thought about, it's been a year now, and I'm still alone. And there's a knock on the door, and there's a delivery from some parents of students I had. They like a little gift box that they'd sent, and it came right on
Nuh-uh.
on the hour, which
Oh.
was interesting.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then throughout the second year, times of feeling alone, uh, I could remember, asking the Lord, why am I alone? How can I be involved, still be involved? I'm not teaching anymore. I'm not around the students like I used to be. And God started bringing in at least one person a day that would just show up at the house or we'd get together for lunch with someone, and after about 3 months, I realized I started writing it down every day. Somebody would
Mhm.
come by, often unplanned,
Yeah.
but God would always bring somebody into my life every day for it was about 3 months that went by like that. One time I was sitting on my front porch. I lived downtown and a nice big front porch, and it was the end of the day, and I thought nobody came by today.
Oh, you were like, "Where's
Yeah,
my person,
yeah.
God?"
Where how come I have to be by myself today? And it's
Uh-huh.
just towards the evening, and I'm just feeling sorry for myself. And a couple of college students came by, one on each side of the street, and they were summer jobs selling windows or
Uh-huh.
pest control or something. And so this college student's walking up. I can see her walking up to the front steps, and I said, I'm not really interested in buying anything today, but if you want to come up and sit down, you can. And so she came up, sat down. We started talking half an hour about her family, where she's from, what she's studying in college. And she'd had some uh, difficulty with her father. And I'm trying to encourage her, you still stay in touch with him,
Uh-huh.
try to reach out to him. This is your family and all that. After half hour, 45 minutes, her friend that was across the street had finished the street and came back and said, it's probably time to go. And so we said goodbye. She left, and I thought, here I was at the end of the day. I thought God had forgotten about me that day, but he brought some stranger by, and just was a great reminder that there's always a blessing that comes after grief, and God was taking care of all that. So I'm in the second year after my wife died, and there's that. It'd be fun to go out with somebody out
Mhm.
to eat. It'd be fun to spend some time with like someone my age and all that. And so uh, one day I was coming back from my daughter's house. I'd taken one of my daughters up to the other daughter's house up in Northwest Indiana, and I was coming back to go to uh, the Christmas Eve service at
Yeah.
College Park, and I wanted to make it back because I always enjoyed that time. And as I'm driving back from Northwest Indiana, I'm thinking, who can I ask out? And
Mhm.
so I thought of Susie.
Yeah.
I'd had her 5 kids in the classroom, and I get to church and I sit by myself, and then I get just seated down about 2 or 3 rows in front of me. She's sitting right there.
That is so funny. I didn't know you were thinking about her, like, in the
Yes.
car, because I remember
Yeah.
you telling me a story. I didn't know about that one. Oh, yes.
Yeah, and it's like God was saying, "Hey, I put her right in front of you. Better ask her out." She was there with with one of her daughters, and so I didn't. We talked a little bit before the
Uh-huh.
service, and I noticed, well, she still looks pretty good here. I didn't know,
Yeah, right.
what was happening in her life or
Right.
whatever, but I didn't listen too well to the sermon because I'm thinking, how can I get myself around to
Right, you're trying to find a
asking?
game plan.
Yes, I got to come up with something here. And so the service was over, and her daughter came up, and we were
Perfect.
talking, and she had a lot of questions. We were just talking back and forth, just a rapid fire conversation. And I'm thinking, how can I get around her daughter though to get to
Right?
Susie?
Oh my god.
And when you date in your 20s, or teens, I guess,
Uh-huh.
there's an awkwardness, and um, you're unsure of yourself and nervousness. And when you're in your 60s, there's an awkwardness, there's some
Same
nervousness.
thing.
Yeah, same thing. The only thing that's better is that you have money to go out to eat,
Right.
and you don't have to ask your dad for the car.
You crack me
So,
up.
so that I try to look at the advantages. And so anyway, the service is over, and I say, would you like to go out for coffee or something sometime? I can give you my phone number. You can, if I could get yours. And so she gives me her phone number, but
Uh-huh.
it's like the end of a pharmaceutical ad where they talk real fast. And I didn't get the numbers down at all. I tried to punch something in my phone, text her, and never heard back from her. And I thought, oh, that's too bad. So life goes on for a few months.
Can I
And
pause you for a second? I
yes,
saw a picture of you that night, and
yes,
I don't think you were thinking you were gonna go meet a lady.
no, no.
You look like you were in, like, a conspiracy theory for, like, UFOs. You had some crazy hair, Mr.
Hey,
Stroup.
well, all right. If you want to talk about that, all the way through school, when I was in school, all the way through my teaching career, I always had to cut my hair. And once I retired, I thought, hey, one time in college, I let my hair grow down to my shoulders.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to let it grow out
Yeah,
again.
it was
So I was an old man with white hair and long hair. Yeah,
yeah.
I thought it was cool. I don't think anybody else. Well,
But
actually, out of the 6 or 7 months, I think there are 2 people that said, "Oh, yeah, that looks good." But
yeah, you had, like, a ponytail and everything.
yeah,
I saw the picture, and
the
I was like, "It might be
the
why she."
vast majority of people did not like it. So, yeah, if you wanna talk about that,
I just
that's
thought
a
it was
story.
I thought it was funny. Susie showed me a picture, and I was like, "Okay." That's probably why she gave her phone number so quickly. She was like, "I don't know if this man might be researching other stuff." Right?
Right.
You looked fun.
I often thought about the guy that was on Back to the Future,
Right.
the professor. Yes,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's what
that's what I look like
you were
if
definitely giving those
they
vibes. Sorry
take
to
it.
cut you off, but I just wanted people to know that, like, they could imagine you walking up and looking like and
Yeah.
stuff. It was fun. I mean, like you said, you wanted, like, you've been teaching for so long, you had to have a certain kind of hair,
Yeah,
and you're like, "Imma live my best life.
yeah,
I'm
just
single right now."
let go now and,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
I
live how
mean,
I want to.
yeah, and she married you, so she must look past that crazy time. We all have crazy times.
Well, uh so a few months go by,
Yeah, sorry.
and I happen to go into Meijer to do some shopping, and I look up, and I'm at the cash register, and towards the door, I see Susie there, and so I'm trying to cash out as quickly as possible, get
Mhm.
to talk to her, and by the time I got there, she walks a lot faster than I do, and she was already out the door. And I thought I saw her get into a car, and so I tried to see if I could follow her, but she was gone. I didn't see her, and I thought, "Oh, that was close."
Right.
And another week or 2 goes by, I'm at the grocery store again, and I come out, I kinda parked out kinda far, and there's this little red car parked right next to mine, and I thought, "That's kinda funny because I was by myself out there. Why would there be a car right next to parked right next to me like that?" And I get out, I get to the car, load up the groceries, and I'm getting in, and I look at the rearview mirror, and this lady is getting her granddaughter out, and I see it's Susie. And she won't admit this, but I think she parked right next to me on purpose.
She probably definitely
And she sat there and waited until I came out. But she won't admit that, but that's what I think happened. We have different views on
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So anyway, this time I get out of the car and I say, I don't think I got your phone number down very well, and so let me try that again. And this time I got it down, and I text her right away to make sure it's the right one
Right.
and all that. She had a son that was getting married in a couple weeks, so we said sometime after that, let's get together. She was willing to do that. So it was around Labor Day. We went out for some coffee, enjoyed like 2 hours just sitting talking, kind of catching up. And then a couple weeks go by, we went out again. And finally, about the third or fourth one, she actually let me come to the house to pick her up. I was starting to wear off on her a little bit,
Uh-huh.
kind of getting her guard down, I think, a little bit.
Right.
And so again, we had just a nice time together. And at the towards the end of the evening, she said, "I don't like to play games." And I was a little disappointed because I like board games and things like that. But then I
He's
realized
got
she's
jokes.
talking about a relationship, and she said, do you want to see what God has for us or not?" And I said, "You sure? Let's do that." And one of the first things that she did then after that was invite me to a family get together after Thanksgiving. She was going to be babysitting for one of her daughters, and she said, "Would you like to come with me?" And those were things that meant a lot to me because I don't really like being by myself.
Mhm.
I like to be involved with other people, and like I said, I can handle about 15 minutes by myself a day, and then I'm done with that. I wanna be with people. And so for her to include me in the family, that was, like, the best thing I could hear,
Yeah.
and it was so meaningful to me, and so, from that time on, I think it was about 3 weeks later, I asked her if she wanted to marry me, and another 6 weeks, we were married.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, and when you're in your 60s, you don't have to wait around. Long engagements, I never thought were good,
Right.
but, if we're gonna do this, let's do it, and so that was, January of 2022, and so now it's been a little over 3 years,
Ah.
and just, again, when there's grief, there's always a blessing that comes from it, and there's always a blessing God has for you, and that's certainly been a big blessing for me.
Right, no, that definitely is. That's I love that story. I mean, I love me some, like, love stories and stuff, but normally it's for, like, younger people and stuff, so it's great and it also shows that, like, God is good and that he does, like you said, he
Right.
has a plan and that you would have never thought of it before, but then, like, how he placed stuff so, like, strategically that, like, you can't deny it. It's not like you just
Right,
happened to run into Susie, like several times. Like, it was, like, grocery store and this, and it was, like, crazy, especially the grocery store thing
right,
because 2 times, like, 1 time I get it, but the second time,
right.
you were like, "Lord, you do want me to get her phone number."
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I am a little slow, but and so sometimes God has to knock on the door a couple times to get my attention, and, so, yeah, that was, great for him to do that way.
Right? That is
Yeah.
hilarious. That's so funny. But that's when you're saying you're slow. You're not slow.
I am.
I
So
am. And aren't we
so
all sometimes in
well,
the
I
God's
don't
plan?
know.
I would say we are,
Yeah.
yes. So with, just, new marriage and stuff, I mean, I guess now, semi-new marriage, you're
We're
still
still
you're
newlyweds,
still
yes, yeah.
newlyweds. That's so fun. That's so fun. With life and stuff, let's go back to, your teaching. I had someone who wanted a question about, since you've taught for 40 years, whole different kinds of students, what have you seen since you started, like, teaching kids what year did you start teaching kids?
I started way back in the last century. I started in August of 1979.
Okay, 1979 to when did you stop?
My last day in the classroom would have been in 2020.
2020?
Yeah,
So from 79 to 2020, that's a long time.
it's a long time,
Right?
yes.
Good jobbers
Yeah,
there.
several decades.
How are you seeing, like, kids deal with stuff? Because have you seen difference in, like, just, like, because you've seen a lot of generations now and different sways of different, like, I mean, now the big thing is, like, mental health and stuff. What were some have you seen any differences, like, with your students through the years? Like, what they're dealing with, how they dealt with stuff?
Well, there's certainly more things that kids have to deal with, but there's always things that kids have to deal with. Whatever generation you're
Mhm.
in, whatever decade you're in, there's always something. I think that in the world, it's like they do things to try to scare kids.
Mhm.
I don't know why. I can remember as a little kid, the big push was about litter, and there were these commercials and, public service announcements about how we have to take care of this. And so as a little kid, I'm thinking, by the time I'm a teenager, there's going to be trash all the way up to my
Right?
waist everywhere. This is going to be terrible. And I don't know, there's just always something to scare kids. So there's always something children have to deal with. But uh, I don't know if this is going to answer
I
your
mean,
question, but what
yeah.
comes to my mind is that over the 41 years in the classroom, there's no difference in the children.
Really?
They they uh, all want to come to know, do you love me? Do you want to be here? Do you want to be with us? Do you want to have fun with us? And those are the important things. Do you know who I am? Do you care about me? That never changed over 41 years. Some of the changes took place probably with parents.
Okay.
Parents became a little more, not necessarily in some in a good way, but
Mhm.
some in a negative way, a little too involved in their students' lives
Okay.
or trying to manipulate their children or keep a hand on them for too long and not let them go. So there were some changes with how parents were over
Yeah.
those years, but with the students, there's always that, do you care about me?
Yeah.
Do you know who I am?
I feel like that applies to just like adult life or any kind of relationship you're in.
Right.
So, but yeah,
Yes.
you saw even in middle school time and stuff. That's crazy. I mean, like you would think, like because you read so much, you see the news. I mean, the news is trying to, just like you said, to try to scare you when you were little. I feel like just the news is constantly trying, no matter what age you are, is trying to
Right.
scare you.
Right. Yeah. They want you to keep watching, I
They,
guess.
I
So,
guess so. And then once you
right.
do that and be scared of something.
Yeah.
Right? It's always something. But I do love that, like that was something you noticed and that you tried to imply put into your class to make them feel because you definitely did. Like I remember when I was in Bible class, I'm not gonna lie, I did not memorize a memory verse
That's
before.
okay.
But you would be like, we would recite it and you would be like, and then yep. And then you would give me like pretty much I just had to do like probably like not even half, like barely like I I had to do like fill in about 30% and I got passing.
You did more than
Sometimes.
that.
Yeah, I may have,
You
but
did a lot more than that.
maybe. I don't
But
know. I felt
yeah.
like you helped me a whole bunch.
Well, I
You
tried
were the
to.
wind beneath my
Yeah.
wings in my
Good.
Bible
Good.
verses, my memory Bible verses. But so anything else you saw, maybe not in the children, but school wise when you were teaching? Because that's a long time to teach, especially in, did you do Bible? I forgot. You said you,
I did just sixth grade for 4 years, and then after that, it was a Bible in the middle school.
Bible in middle
Yeah.
school. What did you see change just education wise, just like school wise for the positive or negative?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes that happened over 4 and 5 decades. I mean, if you can believe it, when I first started teaching in 1979, the entire school, there were like 12 telephones on the entire campus, and they were all in either offices or teachers' lounges. There was a payphone. You might not know what that is. That was the
Oh,
thing
I
where
remember those. Oh,
you put
yes.
coins into. So technology changes a lot. By the
Hmm.
time I retired in 2020, there would be 25 telephones in the classroom.
Right. Because,
Everybody had their own.
right.
And so there's a lot of changes like that would take place. There was actually a time before email, before voicemails and things like that. You actually had to send notes home. You had to get them signed and bring
Hmm.
them back. So a lot of changes like that. As far as the school is concerned, when I first started teaching, it was kind of a school that was under the law.
What does that mean?
Meaning that there's a lot of rules,
Okay. Okay.
and if you want to obey the rules and you're righteous and
Hmm.
you're doing what's right, if you don't, you're out of here.
Okay.
And it was great to see that change to a school of grace.
Hmm.
There's always the pendulum that swings back and forth, and you want to try to get to the middle. But I really liked to see that move to grace where you care more about the person than you
Hmm.
do about following rules and things like that. So that was a big change that took place, and it was coincided with a growth in the school,
Hmm.
which I think was not a mistake. So that was a big change that took place. Um, I wasn't anticipating this
I
question,
know.
so
I
I know
apologize. Well, I
there's
wasn't.
probably 30 other
I know,
things I
right? Well,
could
I
talk
wasn't
about.
either, but then
Yeah.
I got a whole bunch of text messages from Zach's cousins last night being
Or-
like, I heard Mr.
yeah,
Stroup's
yeah,
going to be on. Maybe ask him this and that. And now
yeah.
I feel like nowadays we're so like interested in like stuff like that. Like I'm interested when you said about, being under the law and stuff. How did you combat that working I mean, the thing is, it's not their like, I feel like it's semi a little bit their fault, but like it's just like how culture and society is at that
Right.
time, especially in that community and era. How did you combat that? Because you knew that wasn't right, but then you also want to foster this, you belong, I love you kind of thing. But with, rules, when you emphasize more rules in relationship, how did you combat that? Because it is your own class. So you don't, I mean, you have to follow the rules, but you don't have to like fully
Right,
follow them. You
right.
know what I mean?
Actually, you just answered it. I realize that what I do in the classroom is on me,
Right.
and I don't want to carry the classroom through in law. I don't want to make rules the most important things. So from really the very beginning, it was all about establishing a relationship. Someone once said that rules without relationship leads to rebellion.
Mhm.
And I wanted to make sure I had that relationship because um, there's a lot you can do in the classroom. There's a lot you can advantages to having a relationship with the students.
Right.
If I just come in and say, okay, these are rules, you better obey them. If you don't, you're out of here. Who wants to be in an environment like that?
Right.
So I want to have a classroom that's full of grace. I want to have a classroom where I know the students, and it just is so much easier because it relaxes them. They're more willing to share things. They're more willing to be involved in what I want to do in the classroom. They want to accomplish the goals that I have. And so I realized I can handle my classroom under grace, even though the law was out there.
Yeah. That's beautiful that you are able to still be, I guess, one, you knew your mission as, I guess, what you wanted your classroom to be,
Hmm.
and that you weren't like afraid of, someone. I mean, it's not even like you were doing something scandalous in there or anything,
Right,
but
right,
just like that you weren't afraid to be like, I value these children and who they are more than these rules. Because I think the problem I think with, like when you value rules over stuff, you kind of lose who the person
right,
is. Like, we're all made in the image of God. This is why the
right,
podcast is
right.
called Image
Yes.
Bearers. But I appreciate, because I do feel like when I was in your class, I was excited to be in your class, and I did feel love, especially for the detention. Because I mean, when we had detention, you would just make us like clean, and then we would eat and stuff. And like, but we already knew what we did wrong, and you
Right.
didn't have to like tell us. Like, we knew we did wrong, but you came with us. I guess we knew we did wrong, but you still showed us love and stuff.
I try not to tell the principal that we're having waffles in the morning or something like that.
Right.
But so there were some things I had to kind of hide behind. But yeah, that was great. I'm glad you mentioned that because yes, you already know you've done something wrong or
Right.
whatever the infraction was. So let's get over it and move on, and
Mhm.
we can still have fun.
Right? It cracks me. I mean, it was so true. You did. I mean, you were sneaky about it, though, I'm not gonna lie, now looking back. But now we can talk about it because you no
Right,
longer work
right. I
there.
don't
So
have
you're
to worry
like,
about getting
"Uh-huh."
fired.
Right? Or people being like, "So I heard on the podcast it, probably wasn't the best. Next time," you're just like, "Yeah, no." But what are your feelings? Because I feel like you're a very intentional person, especially we keep talking about like wanting people to feel like they're seen, heard, and that you have this like community relationship kind of attitude, perspective. How do you feel about like just now with like the I did not think I was going to ask you this. So if you don't have an answer to it, I totally the whole like deconstruction kind of thing going on now and stuff, because you mentioned before you saw, the whole rules. I mean, I'm gonna say like a legalistic kind of thing if we're gonna go there. That's where I'm going with it. But how do you feel about that now? Because you've seen it and like but the thing is, I look back and I know better because I know the Bible and stuff, and that's not what God wants. What do you think about the whole deconstructing era now?
Well, I would guess I'm not an expert here, but I would guess that
You can submit your thoughts,
most of the deconstruction is happening at the college age,
right?
maybe high school age, and I'm in the middle school, and I don't think they probably are thinking along those lines as far as their faith of you know turning their back on
Yeah.
truths and things like that. So what I saw in the middle school, what I wanted to try to accomplish was to form a good foundation so that later on they would be able to think back and say, okay, yeah, maybe God's word is true. Yes, I need to check this out. I remember we talked about this story, or God uh, had this theme in His word. So I wanted to try to build a foundation of God's word and a love for God's word so that when you get to high school and college and maybe you start having those thoughts of, is this really true? Or I need to kind of, and I don't know how you define the deconstruction era, but it seems like a time when we're questioning
Yeah.
is this all really true?
Right.
Is there really a God that loves me, and is there His will for my life? That's the way I kind of see it. And if you can have a good foundation early in life, you might go through some rough years, but you'll always come back to that foundation.
Right. And I think of the people like I think when I think of deconstructing, I think it's like when you get on your own kinda but I feel like it sometimes starts in like high school kind of thing, but just
Hmm.
you questioning because you see the suffering, you see that the world is not, as great as, like and you're supposed to be believing in, at the time you think you have this relation with the Lord, but then bad stuff happens and no one
Right,
tells you kind of how to handle it and that God is good, but he also like he suffered and we're going to suffer with him.
right,
But we have Jesus Christ and we're not alone in this world.
right.
But I do think about the people, the students you had after your wife passed away, that they got to have the gift of seeing you had something hard and then this later, like seeing you go through something hard and then you also showing up and showing that God is still good because you showed up in that. So whoever those students are you had during that time, I think you definitely laid a foundation there because you also were going through a trial. And then at that time you showed up, you still taught them and you showed them that you do not get swayed by that and that you still believe God is good.
Well, I hope that came through.
For me, it
The
would have if I
Right.
was in middle school and that
Well,
happened.
those students are in their first couple years of college right now, and so some of those students might be going through some of those thoughts of,
All
the
right.
deconstruction era and all that, and so this is something that we won't know for 5 or 10 years.
Right.
Just, if this was able to help them through those times, but I know God is faithful, and so I'm I have hope that He will use that time in those particular students' lives.
Mhm. I mean, see, I would think so and stuff. I think when you're talking, I was thinking back to myself and like I would say like it started, I would say like middle school and high school. I saw like some, people going through stuff and I was like, they're supposed to believe in God, like their family's
Right,
supposed to believe in God. This is supposed to happen, but bad stuff's happening to them. They're not, like people in their life are not showing up. And it was kind of, so I was just thinking about that. And then it made me think about like when you were going through that hard time and stuff. Cause I feel like in like elementary, middle school, and high school, we had a lot of we learned a lot about the Bible and stuff, but we never really saw our teachers weren't very vulnerable. Like we never knew what they were going through. They were just like, here we, like, here's a lesson, here's about God, God is good, but you never felt like they had any struggles. So to knowingly know that someone has a struggle because they lost someone they
right,
love and then see how they go through it. It's kind of like you really don't know their character until life is life in.
right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
So, yeah, so
and
that's where my thinking process was
right,
for that
right.
comment.
There was something you said that brought a thought to my mind. I can't
Oh,
think what it is
no.
now.
Oh, shoot.
It'll
Isn't that
come
the
back.
worst?
Yeah, it'll
Isn't
come
that the
back.
worst?
Yeah.
It is. But I also wonder, because you had this strong faith, have you always, like, had this strong faith? Was there any time, like, when did when did you become saved or have a relationship with the Lord?
Well, I was very young actually, and as I look back on that, are there were 2 or 3 situations that came into my life, and so I don't remember. I was 4 or 5 years old, so I don't remember
Right.
necessarily the correct sequence, but I do specifically remember these events. I was the youngest of 9 children, so I always looked up to my older brothers and had a great childhood. And there was one time, this is now back in the early 60s, late 50s, and there was this thing called tent meetings. Churches would
Okay.
have these big
Oh,
tent meetings
yeah. I've
and
seen them on
revivals.
TV. Yes.
I think that's how Billy Graham got started
Yeah.
in tent meetings. And so at our church, we had this tent meeting, and evangelists would come in. There'd be services every night. And one night they have the altar call, if you want to get right with Jesus, come down, you can pray. And one of my older brothers went forward and got saved that night, and I thought, "Well, if he did that, then that must be something I should do too, because I
Uh-huh.
always look up to
Yeah.
my brothers." And again, the sequence, I'm not sure if this all happened in the same summer or just, because I was so young, but we went to Vacation Bible School, and the teacher was talking about Isaiah, about all we like sheep have gone astray,
Yeah.
and had flannel graph up there. This is something else. This has gone the
Oh, I
way
remember those.
of,
Those were old school, but they
of
were good.
payphones.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Right. They
this is
do.
old school stuff. And I just remember putting a sheep up there, and all we like sheep have gone away, and explained how our own sins we've turned away from the Lord, but He has died. Jesus Christ died and forgave our sins. And I can remember all the way home that day. And again, you can't discount God's working in even a young child's
Yeah.
life. And I can remember thinking, all we like sheep have gone astray, and I need to make sure I'm right with the Lord. The third thing that happened, again, might be the same summer. I can remember being outside playing, playing outside, and it was a sunny day. I look up and see the sun, and somehow in my teaching through Sunday school or whatever, I knew heaven was up above, hell was down below, and if I was right with Jesus Christ, I could go to heaven. And I thought, I want to go to heaven. So I went in to talk to my mom. I heard this on Mother's Day, mothers are the greatest evangelists there are.
Oh, I
And
like to
so,
think so. Yeah.
yes, and so you don't know what's ahead for you yet,
Right.
but um, I went into my mom and I said, I had a speech kind of pediment,
Oh.
and I said I wanted to be saved, but I had a SH blends were difficult for me, so it came out I want to be shaved. And my mom said, "Oh, you're too young for that." Fortunately, a couple of my brothers were there listening to this conversation. They said, "No, no, he wants to be saved." And so she picked up on that. And I remember she talked about how we've all sinned. We need to ask God for forgiveness. We can pray to Jesus right now, and you can be saved. And we knelt down on our little enclosed front porch area that we had, and I prayed that prayer. So those three things are what I look back to as
Yeah.
far as my salvation experience. And again, I don't remember necessarily
Right.
how the sequence went, how much space is between those time, but that is when I came to know Jesus Christ. And so that was the foundation. And I forget all of your question now, but that was the foundation for my faith and growing up
Uh-huh.
with that. Not that I always made the right decisions. There's a
Right.
lot of things I wish I could change, a lot of things I'm ashamed of during the middle school, teenage years, but there was that foundation that was there. And so I was able to see from a very early age, God has always been faithful.
Right.
God always is going to meet our needs. He is true. I might make some wrong mistakes, or I might make some decisions I think are only for me, but God always uses everything for his will and to get me right to the place where he wants me to be.
Right. It sounds like you have like the gift of like faith, kind of.
Well,
I
I
mean, I don't know
hope
if it
so.
is a
Yeah.
gift, but I feel like there's some people I've met that just like they're just faithful. Like, I don't know, they don't really like question it. Like, they didn't have to have like something super crazy to happen to be like, oh yeah, the Lord is the Lord. They were
Right.
just like, it makes it like it just clicked with them, and they didn't have to like struggle with stuff as much.
By the time I got to college, I remember thinking, I don't really have a testimony. You hear all these
Right.
great testimonies. I was on these drugs, or I was involved in this and all, and I thought I don't really have a good testimony. But then I heard someone in college talking, and they said, I was saved at such an early age. I don't remember a day when I wasn't saved. There was a time, but I was saved at such an early age. And I started thinking about that. I don't remember a day of being separated from the Lord, or uh, not being saved, although there was, but I was saved at such an early age. But I realized that God, because of that, saved me from a lot of wrong
All
decisions
right.
that would lead to bad consequences, baggage in my life that I didn't have. And I saw that as a great blessing that God brought me at such an early age.
Right. I would say definitely that is the thing. I've talked to a lot of people that are like that. They're like, I don't have a testimony and stuff. I think,
But that in itself is a testimony
right,
and something to be thankful for.
right, it
Um,
is. And I think it also is very like I'm glad you see. I mean, like you saw that like the Lord kept you because you did grow up in a era of crazy. You could have gone crazy.
Right,
You
right,
could
yeah.
have, right?
Oh, the '60s were a lot of fun.
Right?
Yeah.
60s and 70s. We've all seen the
Right,
the ones who have not grown up and that have seen the
right,
movies and
right.
stuff
Uh-huh.
and have heard the damage that could have happened.
Exactly.
But it does. I think at first I always used to think to myself, like, no, you have to have like a testimony. Like, then that doesn't mean like when I was younger. But then the older I've gotten and stuff and the more I've interact with people, it just seems like there's just some people that like you that just have this already knowing. There's no. It's just the Lord made you that way.
Well, it's a
And
gift, I
yeah, no, it
guess,
is. That's what I
that
said.
God comes from God.
Yeah.
Yes.
All good gifts come from
Right.
God. Isn't that what they say?
Exactly.
All right. Do you have I guess we'll wrap this up. But
Okay.
I do have some questions for you. I forgot to bring your letter. Normally you say like the things.
Right.
What are you pondering? Is that one of the things?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking
Yes.
about on the list.
Right.
For those who don't know, Mr. Stroup will write you, a letter, and then he puts like what he's pondering, what you're listening to, what
Right.
you're reading.
Mhm.
Is there a fourth thing?
Yeah, what?
I don't know. Let's just do
Yeah, a memory.
memory.
A memory
Okay.
of
Let's
you
do
or time together, yes.
let's do pondering.
All right.
Where are you pondering?
My wife and I have been memorizing some different Psalms, and we've been working on Psalm 145 most recently, and so that's been something that pondering, um, and of course, being right on the spot now, I can't
All right.
can't do it.
Oh,
She could
don't you
probably
hate that?
start it for
Don't
me,
you hate that? Do you know what the
but
gist is? What they're trying?
yes, about exalting the Lord
Okay.
and extolling Him, and God is a God of mercy and rich in love. So they're different as you memorize something. There are different verses that come back and influence your thinking. And so Psalm 145 would be right now
All
the
right.
pondering part.
I love that you do that because I feel like a lot of people your age kind of after retirement kind of tap out. And I feel in the
I'm very afraid of that happening,
right?
and don't want that to be the case.
Right? Like,
Yes.
because Christian, I had another person on that was like, the Christian walk is like being on a treadmill. You have to keep going. And when you
Mhm.
step off, you fall off.
Right.
So you have to keep going. So I love that you do that because on this Christian walk, you're still staying on the treadmill and you keep
I
going.
hope so. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
All right. What's the next one? Reading?
Reading, good question. I've been reading for a while. It's called Splitting Heirs,
Okay.
not splitting hairs, but splitting heirs, since I'm in this part. And so that's been an interesting financial book.
Okay.
But I want to change. We were just listening to interview on the radio this morning before we came, and there's a marriage book, and I don't remember the name of it right now,
Okay.
but marriage book and helping us understand how our past hurts or our past insecurities impact us now, and how we have to be aware of our spouse, have to be aware of what is going on in their life, or things that could trigger emotions in their life. And so I think we're going to buy that book, so that'd probably be the next
Right.
one. But at the same time, since you asked, I also heard interview with Jordan.
Peterson? No.
Yeah, Jordan. Is that the last?
I don't know.
Jordan?
He's like a child psychiatrist.
Yes,
He became like very famous.
Peterson.
Yeah.
Peterson.
Yeah.
Yes, and he wrote a book about fatherhood.
Yeah.
And yes, and so I really would like to get that, and I would like to read that, and then buy it for all my sons and sons-in-law, maybe for Father's Day or something.
Right. Because he does. I mean, he has some very interesting stuff.
Very
Zach
practical. Yes.
yeah, Zach and I listen. He has some shows on the Daily Wire. Not trying to
Okay.
promote Daily Wire, but
Yeah.
and he has ones on like Genesis, Exodus, and like the Gospels, and he sits around with like a whole bunch of like theologians, professors, and stuff. But then he also just dropped one about parenting, so that would be very interesting.
Yes, I think that's the one we're talking about.
Yes.
I'd like to get that. And the thing I like about it, he said, it's a short read. You can read it in about an hour. That's my
perfect.
attention span.
Right.
I can't read a 600-page book, but
No.
I could handle that.
Right, that is a good one.
Yeah.
All right, pondering, reading, listening?
Listening. There are different worship songs that I'm listening to. And there's one called Hallelujah.
Do who
and I
sings it?
can't sing it for you. You
Who
wouldn't
sings
want me
it?
to. I I can't think of it
Is
right
it
now.
is it like new one?
If I had my phone, I
Is it
could.
more like rocky?
Uh, probably a little bit. Yes, yes. Last couple of years.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
last couple.
So
Okay, I
that's
think
on
I know.
my phone. I could get it out if you really want to know
No,
who sang
no,
that one.
it's fine. It's fine. We'll look it up later. And then what was okay,
The memory.
memory
Yes. And
of it.
so my
What's the
memory of you goes
Uh-huh.
back to one of the first days you started school. And you started like a week or two into the school year, and
Yes.
you came into 8th grade, and I can remember you exactly where you sat back there. No idea that one day we'd be sitting across here and
I didn't
talking to
either.
each other, but I could see the fear in your eyes.
Uh-huh.
Starting new school is very difficult. Starting new school when you're in middle school is extremely difficult. And I know you were at Heritage earlier, but
Yeah.
still this was coming into a new situation. And I remember seeing the fear in your eyes,
Right.
and I thought I really need to pray for this girl. And I think about the second or third day, the secretary brought you out because you didn't want to come back.
Uh-huh.
It was too
Yes.
difficult. And I can remember I was in the portable classroom at that time. And I can remember came out of the classroom, and I can remember we stood there, and I remember praying for you.
Oh.
And so I'm glad you stayed,
Yeah, dude, I
and I'm
stayed.
glad that we've kept in touch for all these years since
I
then.
know.
So
Who would have
uh,
known we'd be on a podcast
yeah,
talking? I didn't. The Lord, he's crazy. What can we say?
right,
He's got plans for us.
right. He
We
does.
don't understand. And then when
Right.
we get in there, we're like, well, look at this. You do know better.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Mr. Stroup, do you have any other words of wisdom or anything you would like to say?
Actually, I do. It's going to take me minutes on my phone. Could I get it
Yeah. Oh
out?
my God. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're allowed to move. You're allowed to
Well,
get on your phone.
I turned my phone off, and after I did that, I thought, because
Oh,
I
me.
if I had a chance to end with something, I was going to end with this.
Oh,
So
yeah. No,
got to
definitely.
wait for the phone to
Oh,
turn
no, it's
on.
fine.
I I thought I don't want it to go off while we're in there, so I turned it off.
I appreciate that. You
Okay.
Zach tends to do that too. He tends to be like, let's do it. Like, oh, put your phones on silence. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to turn it off.
Yeah.
It must be like a guy thing or
Yeah.
something where I'm just put it on silence and then still like feel the vibration. Where guys are like, nope, I'm good. I'm turning it off.
Because I took a picture of this, and so I have to
Yeah.
make sure I get the words right here.
All right.
And what I want to share here is when I thought about coming on with you, I thought this is something that I want to make sure I share. And it could go really back with listening to, because it's a song.
Okay.
Right before Susie and I got married, she shared this song with me, and we had it sung at our wedding.
All right. You got to sing it to me?
So, no, I will not. You don't want me to do that. But if I would summarize everything, it's a song called He's Been Faithful to Me.
Okay.
And I just want to read my favorite lines here. I cannot remember a trial or pain He did not recycle to bring me gain.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot remember a single regret in serving God only and trusting His hand. All I've needed, His hand has provided. He's always been faithful to me. So
Right.
I love those words, and that to me was what came up when I thought about coming in and talking to you. I thought this is what I would want to be able to say, that there's grief, but it's always followed by a blessing, and He's been faithful to me.
And I love that. That's a beautiful ending.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being ready. Look at you. Normally people are like, let me think. You're like, no, I got a word for you today.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Stroup, we thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day. Again, this is Image Bearers. I'm Lacey Connor. Please like or subscribe. Bye, guys.